The Tory regime downsized or privatized government services and reduced funding to agencies. The McGuinty government was expected to get public services out of this hole.
After Harris came in, we lost approximately 20,000 jobs. Some were through attrition, some were through layoffs.
And I have a special message that I want to send to Ontario's public servants. I want you to know I value your work, and I look forward to working with you so we can provide still better services to our public.
He was going to work with the public service, the public servants, the people that provided the services, and that hasn't happened. As a matter of fact, every day it's getting worse.
Well, children's mental health services across the province for 10 years didn't receive a penny of new funding. The government seems to have created this competitive model to children's services, so agencies that we used to collaborate with, that we used to work well with the families involved, we're now competing with. And I don't think that's a good use of our time, and it's really causing havoc in the system.
The waiting lists are months and years long for some of my families to receive what they need, and by the time the services kick in for them, the crisis has expanded to such a degree that it's so difficult to even start to tackle it.
The Liberals, while in opposition, opposed the privatization of Ontario Hydro. They championed public power. Now they are building new power plants as public-private projects across the province.
In the energy sector, they of course inherited an electricity sector that was in total chaos. The conservative experiments with the market were thoroughly in disrepute. They have attempted to bring some order to this with what they call a balanced approach, a little bit public, a little bit private.
They promised and failed to close all of Ontario's coal-fired generating plants. They made assurances that there would be extensive public discussion before proceeding with more nuclear power.
They are planning on spending over $40 billion on refurbishing old nuclear power stations and building new nuclear power stations, and putting in only token dollars towards conservation and green power. One of the many worrying plans that the Ontario government has put forward is this notion of developing public-private partnerships for some of their energy plants, be it in nuclear power generating stations or gas-fired generating stations. They typically cost more money, and more importantly, they take away accountability.
If they practiced real conservation, you wouldn't have to build this plant. Conservation is the fastest, cheapest, and cleanest way to solve our energy problems. Why aren't they doing it?
The Harris cuts stripped the government's ability to protect the environment. Labs were closed, inspectors laid off, and enforcement was reduced. McGuinty has not fixed the damage.
When we think about climate change specifically and the need for Ontario to act quickly on climate change, certainly the McGuinty government has done a great job in curbing sprawl with the Greenbelt, but we've seen very little action otherwise. They've failed us on energy conservation. They have only done half the job on supporting transit in our cities, and they've done virtually nothing to curb car use.
Ooh, it's getting hot in here. There's too much climate in the atmosphere.
As an environmentalist, I'm quite concerned about the growth of the idea of public-private partnerships. Public services provide us an ability to have public scrutiny. Public scrutiny is very important when it comes to protecting the environment. If we start privatizing our waste services, privatizing our transit, privatizing our water, we run into the problem of those services and those operations no longer being environmentally accountable.
Unfortunately, ask anybody who lives in this area and they can tell you that people jump off balconies in this neighborhood probably around once or twice a month.
The Harris government dug its deepest hole for the people living in poverty. In 1995, It cut welfare payments by 22%. The McGuinty government raised welfare rates in small increments, barely matching the cost of living. They have not made up for the Harris cuts.
I don't see any practical difference between the McGuinty Liberals and Harris in terms of people's lives and the kind of shape they're in. I don't see any difference. If you're a homeless woman living on welfare, your check went from $195 a month to $201. And $6 a month isn't going to do anything to preserve your health, or it's a meaningless, insulting raise.
Poor women cannot get enough calcium.
And despite his promises, McGuinty continued Harris's practice of clawing back federal child benefits from welfare recipients.
The fact that this government was saying that they couldn't afford to do it and that they were going to do little incremental things was incredibly disappointing.
1 in 6, or 443,000 of Ontario's children, lives in poverty. 1/3 of these children have a parent or parents who work full-time all year round.
Working at $8.50 an hour, pay $1,045 per month for rent, have to borrow from this to pay this one. I'm in favor of them raising the minimum wage to $10.
Spearheaded by the labor movement, the popular campaign to raise the minimum wage to $10 an hour was gaining momentum.
The Liberal government increase to the minimum wage of $8 is grossly inadequate. It is still $6,000 below the poverty line for a full-time worker.
The $10 minimum wage campaign quickly became a movement to be reckoned with. But the Liberals, at first, refused to consider it. In 2007, just a few months before facing the electorate again, the Liberals released their poverty budget.
So today, we are introducing the Ontario Child Benefit for Children in Low-Income. I want to tell you that these reforms go well beyond ending the clawback of the National Child Benefit Supplement.
What it does is it does not end the clawback, it reduces the clawback.
Today I am announcing, sir, our plan to raise the minimum wage to $10.25 per hour. We will do that with increases of 75 cents per hour on March the 31st in each of the next 3 years.
The only reason this is even a consideration is because people like us, the voice of the people, have been raised over the past few months. And the voice of the people is not asking for it in 3 years. We're asking for it now. A $10 minimum wage now. If they want to make it $10.25, great. $10.25 now.
And we need to watch McGuinty and all the political parties and press them for a full poverty reduction strategy with targets and timetables and designated resources.
The McGuinty government has tried to govern as if the Harris government had never existed. As if the incomes of families dependent on social assistance had never been slashed. As if the downloading of provincial responsibilities onto local governments had never happened. As if. Ontarians live the Harris legacy and the government's failure to deal with it every day.
I think the key to political success in this election cycle is to keep putting the pressure on all of the political parties, on the government and on both of the opposition parties to make progress on key policy issues, whether it's childcare or improving elementary and secondary education.
The Ontario Health Coalition and the $10 minimum wage campaign showed that the Liberal government could be forced to change its policies. Democracy is not just about electing a particular political party. It's about keeping up the pressure, organizing and mobilizing to put the priorities of working people at the top of the agenda. We must continue to push all of the politicians, all of the political parties. The future of Ontario depends on it.